Good evening, Crime Crunchies. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight. I am your host, Courtney C., a 27-year veteran of the media, and I'm so happy to now be able to bring you Crime Crunchies. Guess what? He's here, the man, the myth. It's Boomer Investigates. I'm bringing him to the stage. Yay!
Hey,
Hey, everyone, this is Boomer from Boomer Investigates. And I want to point out that pinned in the chat is a link to his YouTube channel. And if you have not already subscribed, you need to just run, not walk over, and please make sure to subscribe. So thank you so much for joining me here tonight, Boomer.
you're welcome. Glad to be here.
So excited. And you know what? I have a feeling that most everybody in my audience already knows about you because when I mentioned that you were coming on live, they're like, I love Boomer. I love Boomer. And
Yeah, a lot of people jump over between channels,
they,
a lot of different channels.
absolutely. And I have to say thank you so much because I was jumping up and down. Somebody in my live had mentioned that you'd given me a shout out. It was probably after I went on some rant about maybe Derek Colella, and you said if you really want to get wound up, go check out Crime Crunchy. So
That's right.
that
I
was
remember that.
so exciting. So anyway, I want to learn a little bit more about you. I like doing these interviews because, we want to see what's going on behind. So can you tell me a little bit about your early life and your career and how you got started?
Sure. I was born in Georgia. My parents took me to Florida when I was 15. And then when I was 21, I joined the St. Petersburg Police Department and started from there in law enforcement. So working for the city of St. Petersburg was the only job I had for a long time until I retired. But anyway, I started there. I started as a patrolman and worked in narcotics. And then I got promoted to a sergeant. I went out of narcotics back to patrol. Then I went back to narcotics a year later. And I spent, this is some of the most fun time I had was in narcotics.
Really?
Working undercover narcotics, working big smuggling cases and things like that. And then I went back to patrol for a few years, and then I went back to I went to the detective division as a sergeant in charge of the burglary division. And then in 1990, I got transferred to the homicide unit where I spent my last 10 years. So that's my career in a nutshell.
So you don't come across as someone who could go undercover in narcotics because I've read about you and I know that you have a strong religious past in the Baptist church, correct?
Right, right. Yep.
So how did that work out? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, at the time I wasn't walking so much with the faith as much as I should have been, but you do what you got to do if you're going to take the job. Now, the only other option I have was not take those jobs and not take that job. So a lot of people, I used to be a bodybuilder and all too. So a lot of people thought I had guys in the narcotics unit didn't think I would work out because I didn't look the part. Well, I had some of the biggest cases they ever had. It's all about getting good informants and doing things like that, and all that works. You got to be an actor too. I had a lot of cool cases. I had cases where I flew from St. Petersburg to Houston with bad guy on the plane, and we're going to do a big deal over there in Houston. And got there, and the DEA said, "No, you're not either, because they want you to go out in the middle of the desert and do this deal. You're not going to do it." So anyway, so I had to act the whole time, flying on the plane with the bad guy and all the whole time. And so it's an acting job, really.
Were you nervous?
Yes, you're nervous, but you can't be nervous. Your life depends on it. You got to play the role. So I played lots of roles in that, and when I was doing that, that was the fun part about it. I got lots of stories of that stuff too.
I know. I'm fascinated. No, seriously, I'm fascinated. I think now, when I was younger, I would have never pictured myself doing anything like this, with true
Mhm.
crime and being interested. But I think that we all change and grow and whatnot. And I think if I had to reinvent myself, I would go back and want to be a detective,
Sure.
because it's so interesting. But,
Sure.
you were married and you had children, correct?
Yes, I did. Yep.
So,
And, I lived in the same neighborhood with a couple of the guys that worked with me in narcotics. And we got a call one day. And my one neighbor, who was a buddy of mine, we came on about the same time. He had been shot. He went into a drugstore on a call from a druggist who said, I think I got somebody here passing bad scripts. And so him and another guy go walking in there, and they go walking in there, and a woman pulls out a pistol out of her person, shoots him dead center in the chest. He survived. But,
wow.
who would have thought that?
Well, and your wife, you're still married. I
Yeah.
I heard that she got the UPS guy just a few minutes ago. And how was that life for her?
Well, she is special because she never, if she worried, she didn't let me know. Now, I didn't tell her very much about what I was doing. She knows a whole lot more about what I did now than she did when it was going on. Now we had a couple of times like this shooting I was talking about. One, her good friend was the wife of the guy who got shot. Then we had another narcotics deal where one of our guys got shot and killed. Then we had deals where we had 3 guys shot in one deal. So all that was going on while we were married and had 3 kids and
Oh
all.
my
And I guess I just kept her in the dark pretty well.
I think that that's probably pretty common though, isn't it? Most of your
Yeah.
coworkers did the same, compartmentalize?
Oh yeah. 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 If you can't, if you share all that stuff, it'll scare them to death. I did deals where people inside the house had guns all over them. And I, wow, just a bunch of them really. And it was, when I think back on it now, there were so many times when I could have gotten killed, shot, whatever. And so, but I'm a speed junkie. I'm a
Really?
thrill junkie. I used to race cars and all too. So, the thrill of things, and that's just the way I was. My mother used to say that I would come to her when I was little and say, "Mama, what can I do exciting?"
So you were meant to I was gonna,
I
because
guess
I was gonna ask how you ended up being a police officer. What was it about being 21 and young and
it seemed exciting. You
yeah,
know, that's why a lot of guys get into it. A lot of people get
adrenaline,
into
right?
it. So, and it is, but it's dangerous too. But a lot of things are dangerous. A lot of people work in dangerous professions and stuff. So I loved it.
So my sister lives in Naples, Florida, and I know you're not in Florida anymore, but I told her, I said, yeah, he's going to be on. You got to catch this tonight. And she says, well, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I mean, are you consulting now? Are you fully retired?
Oh, I'm fully retired. I've been fully retired from law enforcement. Now, I did do after I retired from law enforcement. I went to the sheriff's office for a year, and I did child investigation for a year. And then I got called into a ministry that I've been involved in for 25 years. But along the way, in order to help support myself some more, I worked as a private investigator for 7 years during that time. But I retired from all of that stuff. Well, not the ministry. I still do that some,
Yeah.
but the PI work and all that. I retired from all that in 2016. So I've been
So
retired from that for 10 years.
good. And you're doing this now. You're doing your channel, which is, are you enjoying your channel?
Yeah,
Good.
I like it. Now, I'm not sure other people like it, but I
Yeah,
like it.
I
And I
think
can
they
get
do.
a little intense sometimes. So, anyway.
I'm guilty as well. Okay, so let's talk about you went from narcotics and then you spent 10 years in homicide. Was that the end of your career?
That was the end of my career. I retired from homicide. I
So
had enough of getting called out because I was in charge, so to speak.
mhm,
I get called out in the middle of the night all the time, and with the homicides, and I had detectives that worked for me that we handled the homicides in St. Petersburg. So anyway, and there was a lot of homicides back then. It's not as bad now, but I would get called out in the middle of the night, and I got called out all the time in the middle of the night. You have to right after you go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning or something, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, you get called out, and there's some drug dealer, DRT we called it, dead right there in the street, and nobody knows anything. You know,
Oh yeah.
you can't, nobody helps you, nobody wants to tell you anything. And I understand why. They're scared,
Yeah.
so anyway, I just kind of got, after 10 years of that, I got tired of that. I'm a guy who likes a real whodunit case. And the Rogers case was a real whodunit, but
Yep.
we had other ones like that. And that's what this one here is with Nancy Guthrie. It's a real whodunit,
Well, we're gonna
So,
get into the Rogers case
okay.
because, that was your career defining, case, and you kinda cut your teeth on that one too as well, didn't you? You were green when you went in?
Yeah, I was in green when, and these guys say that you can't do it without experience. If you're a good investigator, you can do it without experience. And, yeah, there are things it's good to have experience. I had lots of experience in interviewing people. I had a lot of experience dealing with people, period, uh, and also some of that experience. Now, some of the experience you get in homicide is you do a lot of things where you see all this is recycled. It's just recycled. It's recycled. Those cases I'm talking about, DRT, that's just recycle. It's like retread. Happens all the time. All these drug dealers killing each other and that kind of stuff. But when you get into a real whodunit case, it's a whole different ball game, and it's just good common sense that does a lot of it, and tenacity to not give up, for one thing. So I don't necessarily, I do believe that experience counts for sure. I'm depending on my experience now to help people on my channel understand what's going on.
Well,
But
and that's why I'm so happy to have connected with you because I know that we'll be getting together again, and I'm hoping soon. But I really want to focus on the Rogers family, and this is a picture of the mother and the two daughters, and I wanted to see if you could talk a little bit about this case.
okay, they were from Ohio. They were farmers, dairy farmers, and they had never been on a vacation in their lives. So they had decided they were going to come to Florida and do the Mickey Mouse thing, right? Now the father was supposed to come, but he could not get anyone to take care of his cows. He had 350 dairy cows or something that had to be milked twice a day and all this kind of stuff. So he couldn't get anybody that he trusted to really take care of the cows. So he just told them, "Y'all go ahead and go. Don't worry about me. Y'all have fun." Okay. So that's what they did. And they went on to Florida and did the regular uh, Mickey Mouse thing and all that. And then they were going to finish up over in Tampa, St. Pete area, beautiful beaches over there, Clearwater Beach and all that. That's where they were going to kind of finish their trip. They had a trip planned out. It was only going to be a week. So they were down to the last of their trip, their plan they were going to do. So they came into St. Petersburg. They left Disney World one morning about 9 o'clock, and they came through into Tampa. So this case is really a Tampa case.
Mhm.
We're in St. Petersburg across the bay, but what happened was anyway, they went into Tampa and they stayed at a hotel. They met a guy along the way. My theory is they met him at the McDonald's. The guy that ended up being the one, he always ate at McDonald's at lunchtime and stuff. And the McDonald's at where I think he met them was near where he lived. He was in construction, and he was from Ohio, and he was a very engaging guy. I would bet that he saw their tag. He was always on the prowl. He'd already done other crimes like this. He has a rap sheet. You wouldn't believe how long his rap sheet is. But anyway, he's engaging them. He engages them at the McDonald's. Says, "Hey, I'm from Ohio," and he strikes up a conversation. Then he says, "Hey, I got a boat. You want to go on a boat ride?" The old tourist thing. And he talks them into end up going on a boat ride later that evening. how we came into this whole thing was in St. Petersburg is in Tampa Bay. Tampa separates St. Pete from Tampa, and there's a dividing line in the middle of Tampa Bay. Half of it is ours, and half of it's Tampa's jurisdiction. Well, these bodies pop up when that sounds crude, but that's exactly what happened. They pop up. He had tied concrete blocks around their neck. And the gases in their body. This is June 4th. The water's very warm and all that. They ended up popping up like a balloon popped you up. And one concrete block wasn't enough. Apparently, he didn't know his science on that. So that's what happened. How we got involved, a sailboat, a person sailing out in Tampa Bay saw it. They called it in. The Coast Guard came out. The Coast Guard started getting the bodies up. They couldn't get one body up, so they cut the rope, not knowing what it was tied to. Anyway, in the end, the mother and the two daughters were brought up out of the water, and obviously they've been killed. Now hands were bound, and feet and hands, and behind their back they had duct tape over their faces, covering their nose and everything like that. Now, a lot of that had kind of halfway peeled off at the time that we recovered the bodies. And one of the girls, Michelle, the oldest one, her hand was free, and we surmise that why we think they were thrown in live. There was nothing that killed them other than water in their lungs. She was able to get one of her hands free, and it was free, but she was on the bottom of the Tampa Bay at the time, so she wasn't able to do anything else. But when she came up, she had one hand free, but it had obviously been tied. So that's how we got involved, and it began from there. Now, at the time, I was personally assigned to burglary. I had a burglary squad. When this came in, there was a different homicide unit, so to speak, different people, and a different homicide sergeant in charge. And also, our agency responded with every detective in the detective division, which was 50. Then we had Tampa helping us. We had Pinellas County. We had, the state's attorney's office. And so we had a lot of help. We put a lot into it for the first month and months. And to make a long story short, it began to really go cold. But at the 6-month mark, one of the lead detectives that was in charge of the case, there was actually 3 lead detectives, but the lead detective, Florida Department of Law Enforcement has a bulletin they put out. Well, he was reading this bulletin about these women that got raped on a boat, a blue and white boat. They were part of the whole thing is and tied to this guy was a blue and white boat. All right, so he sees that, and he lights onto that, and that happened 2 weeks before this case occurred, on June 4th. 2 weeks before that, this guy named Oba Chandler had talked to these 2 Canadian women that were on a visit also. One of them, he talked one of them to going out in a boat with him, and he raped her and all while he was out. But then he let her go. And the only reason we figured he let her go is because the other girl had seen him too and seen him up close. That's just guessing there, but he let her go. And she reported it and all, but she went on back to Canada. Now, when we saw that bulletin, we immediately had detectives go to Canada and speak to her. And she was able to give us a profile, a picture, an artist drew up, one of the Canadian artists, very good profile, composite. And that's the boat. So he was able to do, they were able to give us that. And then, all right, so now you can imagine prior to that, you talk about leads. I just did this one video on leads. But anyway, we had gotten in about 1,500 leads in the beginning. And then when that tip came in, we got another 1,500 in, and we were swamped with leads. That was at the 6-month mark. Okay, we ran down all this kind of stuff and everything else, and nothing happened. So at the 1 year mark, we were in that year was in St. Petersburg was the most murders they've ever had in St. Petersburg. It was 49 murders. So in 1990, one year, or let's see, January 1990, I got transferred into the homicide unit. We reviewed all the open cases that we had. So when we got done reviewing them, the only one we didn't review was this case because it was so humongous that, normally you get a murder book and you might get a 4-inch thick book. And we had all our detectives review these open cases. We had about half a dozen that were open. But it came down, we reviewed all those, and then this one was left. Now I was in charge. So I went to my commander and I said, hey, what about this Rogers case? Why don't we review that? He goes, well, how are we going to do that? That's too big. And we've already done everything that needs to be done. So I said,
Yeah.
well, okay, let's do this. Let me put together a team of people of new eyes, all new people. Okay. And we'll start over and we'll review this. And we did that. And I got people from, I got an FBI agent, good friend of mine, used to work for me in narcotics. They became an FBI agent. I got the state attorney's office. I got the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. I got new detectives that were not homicide detectives.
Interesting.
And brought them in. But I knew them. I had confidence in them because they'd worked for me in burglary. Some of them had, there was a couple that had not, but they had previously worked in other units that they had proven themselves. Anyway, we got all this team together. So we had about 12 people that reviewed this. It took us 2 weeks to review this case, all the reports. Now at the time we had, and all the leads, at the time we probably had, let me see, 10 or 12 4-inch binders that we all read every report and every lead, and we went through the whole thing.
So now let me ask you a question. When you do that, is everyone reviewing it on their own, or are you reviewing it together?
We're all reviewing it together. We got a big room, big office. We got a big long table, and we're all sitting there, and we sit there all day together by ourselves, and we review it, and then we come up with questions, and then we did something that needs to be done on a lot of these cases for sure. And we didn't have a lot of quote evidence, but I said, okay, let's pull out all the evidence from the evidence room, and let's all look at every piece of evidence, the rope, the blocks, the days in stationary, which are showing there type thing, let's look at all this evidence, and let's each one of us look at it and go through it. I called it an evidence autopsy. We autopsied the evidence. So when we did that, we came up with they didn't think we were going to come up with anything. Actually, during that thing, was hard. I'm telling you, it was hard. We brought in the 3 detectives that were the quote leads.
Awkward.
Yeah, it was awkward. I tried my best to be as diplomatic as I could be with them and say, hey, we're not out to get you. We're not out to say you've done anything wrong or you didn't, whatever. We're just going over this. And so here we've got a few questions. So we started questioning them, and some of them couldn't handle it very good for sure. And probably still resent me to this day, even though we did it. Yeah. Even though we did it as easy as we could.
Yeah, they felt criticized. And how can you not? Because you're kind of poking holes in it. And you're a new guy, right? You're the new guy.
I don't know anything. That's what they thought. I don't know anything. So to make a long story short, we got done with that review. I wrote a 10-page report, single spaced, of all the things that needed to be done. And of course, they had told us, I won't say this. They had told us several times, we asked them, did you do this? Oh, we've done that. Oh, we've done that. That's been done.
Yeah, nothing's there.
I would say, well, where's the report? We don't see a report for that. So anyway, I came up with this list, wrote this long list, and I gave it to my commander at the time who had given the okay to do this. Well, unbeknownst to him, that just backed him into a corner in a way. Here he's allowed this team to review it, right? And now you're going to say, well, okay, good, thanks, bye.
Yeah.
No. So it put the pressure on him. I said, can we put together a team to really go after this thing now? So he said yes. And I put together a team of, I think at the time it was 6 of people. And we had the lead detective on. He wasn't enjoying himself.
Yeah.
So he eventually left. So we dug into it, and we started doing all these assignments. Then we during the go back to the review for a second.
Sure.
One of the key things that was found during the review and was a tourist brochure, which had been written on in somebody's handwriting, and also now that you got up there now is the stationery from the hotel. This is from the tourist brochure.
Yep.
It's just part of the brochure, but the we're looking at that, and we come across this, and it's what is this? What is this? And so I looked at it and I said, you know what? This hasn't been ninhydrin. Ninhydrin is a fingerprint thing that you do, fingerprints, because we didn't know who's writing this. Or there was two types of writing. One of them ended up being the bad guy's writing. The other was Jones' writing. So that's the first problem. So then another, then the guy who was the FBI agent, who's retired now, but he worked out of the Tampa office. He connected the two, Courtney Campbell, and just went blank. 2 roads that intersected together right by the Tampa stadium over there. And so only a person that would, he knew Tampa because he worked there. I didn't know Tampa anyway. He said, that's right over there off of Dale Mabry, right where by the stadium. And so then all that kind of came together. And then we kind of realized, well, whose writing is this? Whose writing it is? So of course we got handwriting samples. This is making a long story short here, but we got handwriting samples from Joan and from the girls and everything else, and had them compared to the handwriting that was on this brochure and on that stationery you showed earlier. And it came out that this is unknown handwriting here. The one that you were showing there, it says Courtney Campbell and all. Unknown handwriting. So we knew who the one in the stationery in the hotel was. That was Joan, the mother. And then one note on the brochure was from her also. So it turns out, like you're putting up that right there, in the end, as a last ditch effort, we were about to get shut down. It was one of those fun things. Oh,
I know. I'm keep going. I didn't mean to mess up your flow.
That's fine.
I'll go back.
Anyway, and I did forget where I was.
The handwriting, the fingerprint of the brochure.
I was going to say that was a last ditch thing. We were about to be disbanded. Our task force was, because we were already almost 3 years into the whole thing, not the task force, but the whole investigation. We were 2 years into the task force, 3 years on the investigation. And we lived in a very political city, but we had a new chief. We had a couple of chiefs during that time frame. One of them was a great chief. He was great. He came from Los Angeles. He worked under Gaines out there. When he came in, and he was getting hammered from other staff people. Why are we working on this case so much? All this. So he calls me into his office, and he wants an explanation. So I give him an explanation. I'm thinking, oh, this is it. This is the end of it, right? He goes, how many people do you need? I said, can you give me about 4? He said, how about 6?
Whoa.
So he gives me 6 more people.
Wow.
And he says, I want you to really go after it now.
Solve it.
Unbelievable. But he didn't even last a year. He was fired.
Oh.
Anyway. So the new guy coming in after him, which was the chief of police there years before, and actually was the chief of police that promoted me, he comes in. So I knew him pretty well, but he comes in, and he was getting all this flack from everybody else. What are you going to do? When are you going to shut this down? So he calls me to his office again, and along with my lieutenant, and he says, how soon can we wrap this up? I said, well, Chief Kurtzinger was his name. I said, he gave us till such and such a date. And he says, okay, I'll honor that. You can have it till then. and then we're shutting it down. So it's okay. So we were working a lot of angles, and I can't go into all those now, but the last ditch effort was putting the handwriting on the billboards.
Yep.
And we also put it in the paper. We had not released that handwriting up till then. You know, it's the old standard, you hold back things and only certain people can know certain things, all this kind of stuff. Well, I said, well, hey, what the heck, let's go for it. What we got to lose now, they're going to shut us down anyway. So we put that up, and also we released it in the newspaper a week or two earlier. And a lady called in and says, I know who wrote that handwriting. He lived in my neighborhood. He has a blue and white boat. And it's right in the vicinity of where all this occurred, where he put them in and all that. That's a long story short. That's how we got to him.
Well, and that's interesting. I mean, using the billboard and, putting out more information, it works sometimes.
It does work.
Yeah.
That's why I believe in those billboards.
Yeah.
Not because, see, I didn't necessarily think anybody was going to drive by and look at that billboard because it's really faded. It's not really that great, And there was another one put up in another location. They were around Dale Mabry, which is where, all this stuff was. So I didn't necessarily think somebody's going to drive by and see that billboard. But what it was the news media splash that we got out of it.
Yeah.
I called a press conference and went out there in front of where these billboards were put up. I got the Pinellas County commissioner lady who was instrumental in getting all this put up too. I got her involved. She came out there. I tried to get my chief to come out there. He didn't want no part of it. Kind of like Nanos doesn't want any part of it anymore. Because he didn't want to stick his neck out there. He's really pushing this anymore. He was trying to get out of it. So anyway, he didn't go out there. So it was me and this and some other law enforcement people and the commissioner from Pinellas County. And we made a big splash, and the media was really good. Local media, newspapers, TV, and all that. They were really good about trying to help us throughout this whole thing. And I'm leaving out a whole lot, which you don't have time for. But anyway, it was the media splash. The lady who called it in, I don't think she ever saw this billboard. She saw it in the newspaper.
Interesting.
Yeah. Or on TV, one or the other.
So Joanne Steffi, it says, I was sure the man who lived down the street from her Tampa home looked just like the suspect wanted, but she did not know whether to report her hunch until the night she looked through her kitchen window and saw the man standing near the end of her driveway staring in her direction. This is part of the newspaper piece. I mean, so right. Who was it that called it in, and did they get the reward?
Yeah, Joanne Steffi there was actually 3 neighbors that worked together on it.
Okay.
And Joanne Steffi's the one that had the idea. She saw she actually cut, when we did the original composite 6 months after the whole thing started, she cut it out of her paper and put it on her refrigerator, that composite there on the left. And she left it on her refrigerator for the longest. And she thought that was who it was, but her live-in at the time said, hey, you don't want to do that. You can ruin somebody's life and all this kind of stuff. So she held back. Then we found out later she was going to night school, and she ran into a Hillsborough County sheriff's deputy who was in the same class, and she talked to him out in the hallway on a break and told him about her feelings. Well, he never, and we never identified who that was, but he never reported that. So she had reported it earlier, but she thought, I've done my deal. I've done my duty.
Sure.
Right? So she never reported. Then when the handwriting came out again and all that, she's suspicioning, hey, he did some work in the neighborhood. He was a screen porch guy. He put in screen porches and stuff like that. So she went to her neighbors and said, hey, can you pull your contracts on such and such, and let's compare the writing? And that's what they did. And they teamed up together, and 2 other neighbors. So in the end, we did have to pay, and she got $15,000 and the other 2 ladies got $5,000 apiece. Wow. Yeah.
Let's see if this is,
that's the father there. This is the brochure down here. You were fixing to go down. That's it. Yeah.
Well, and there was a whole other story about the father and the uncle. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't need to go into that if you'd rather
Yeah.
not, because it doesn't matter. It was a moot point. But
They were innocent all along. His brother
yeah,
was in jail and
yeah.
couldn't have done anything.
And yeah, no, it's really, really. Is this you guys here?
That was my team toward the end. Yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
very cool. This is you right here.
yeah, that's me, little
Yeah.
Mr. Overweight.
I think we all have been there. Okay, well, excellent. So, and so you guys caught this guy. What was
Yeah.
his motivation? What was this, a fantasy thing? What was
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Yes. He's a predator. That's
Okay.
what he was on the prowl all the time. Uh, Unfortunately, we worked him, we got him in jail and all, but from the time all this stuff they released today or yesterday or a couple of days ago about, the sheriff released about what to look for and all this, he
Mhm.
did all those things. He was extremely, attached to the news and everything else. He actually left and went back to Ohio when it first came out, the composite came out and all that. And he eventually moved to his family. He was married and had a little daughter over to the other coast to get away. And while he was over there, he murdered another woman, raped and murdered her. And he had a camper. He in Daytona Beach. He grabbed a girl off the street, a 14-year-old girl, threw her in a camper, tied her up, and all this kind of stuff. And she managed to lay in back there to kick out a window and get herself out of the camper and fell on the street, broke her leg and all, but she survived.
Wow.
So he was always on the prowl, just like the two ladies from Madeira Beach that the one that he raped. He's got an incredible rap sheet of all kinds of stuff that he
He's a
was
serial
involved in.
killer.
I think you don't kill 3 women for the first time off like this. I think he's killed others, and we just couldn't prove it. The last lady I told you about who he did afterwards, we did prove it. They proved it by DNA later on.
So, do you think that part of the fantasy is the killing, or was he killing them to shut them up? Because you said you mentioned that he had let one of them go, and I mean, a lot of people will kill them just because then they can't talk and turn them in. It's safer if they're dead.
Yeah, I think he made a mistake on the rape of the Madeira Beach lady by letting her go. He made a mistake, but he knew that her friend had seen him, had seen his car. He had a specific vehicle and all that kind of stuff. But he couldn't help himself. He had to rape her. He couldn't talk the other girl coming. He was very disappointed the other girl didn't come.
Wow.
So he went ahead and he raped her anyway, and took her back and let her go. And he told her, "Is your life is sex worth living or worth dying for?" It's just sex to him, he calls it. So
Yeah.
anyway, is it worth dying for? And he had duct tape on the boat at the time. He had a concrete block. He had these ropes. So he was already planning on doing this sometime, and he just happened to run into these ladies that I think got off at Del Mabry off of Interstate 275 by mistake. They weren't even going to get off there. They weren't planning on it, but they got off there by mistake and ran into Mr. Evil.
So this is your career-defining case. You solve it. You solve it.
No, I don't solve it. I have a team of people who
You
solve
have
it.
exactly.
I just happen to get to lead it. That's all.
Exactly. So, the folks that had it before, you mentioned that they still might be a little salty now. I mean, how was the reception when you actually your team got this solved?
Oh, everybody was happy, very
Yeah.
happy. They were very happy. They couldn't be not happy.
Yeah.
And the lead detective, there's been a couple of TV shows done on this case since then. He agreed to be on them and did it and all. And I thought he would be not wanting to do that. But anyway, he did. I don't hold anything against any of those guys, whatever. I mean, I had to do what I had to do. And I was never mean about it that I know of.
Well, no. And the thing is, this was a horrible situation. This had to have been in the news. And I'm going to put First of all, the link to the forensic files on Amazon Prime, Boomer is in this. This talks about the case of the Rogers family, and he has links to all the media in his profile, but I'm going to go ahead and copy the Amazon link. I did watch this. It was fascinating, and Boomer is in this. My thing's having an issue. Also, there's a Tampa Bay Times that Boomer has linked as well. It's Angels and Demons. I think it's a 5-part.
It's
And
7 parts, and the guy who wrote that, Tom French, he won the Pulitzer Prize for that. It's an incredible article. 7 parts.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Absolutely worth the read.
Yeah.
And then there is also an Oxygen link. I mean, there's all kinds of links. If you go to his profile, he's got all of, I mean, this is a banner case. And did you ever see anything close to this again in your career?
No. I don't think there's been anything like that since I retired in the Tampa Bay area. I mean, we had a lot of good cases, and a lot of, had some whodunits, and there's one whodunit that still haunts me that occurred as a contract killing, I know, in St. Pete. But anyway,
which one is that? Could you give us like the 5-minute or the elevator pitch of that one that still haunts you?
There's a guy who lived in and there's a couple of not nice areas of St. Pete. One's called Snow Isle, and one's called Shore Acres. There's a more advanced part of Shore Acres, and that's where this guy had a home on the water and all, and he was living by himself. He was probably in his 60s, and we get a call to go out to his house, and what happens is he's been shot in the back of the head while he's sleeping, and we had evidence of some kind of homemade silencer that was used in that. But this guy he was in business for years, and he had a boat business and was a wheeler and a dealer and all this kind of stuff. And his house was full. It was a beautiful house, but it was full of boxes and boxes of all kinds of deals and things he'd done over the years. And he had made a lot of enemies, including an ex-wife. But we couldn't pin it on anybody. And here's the deal. This was coming off of the Rogers case. When I say coming off of the Rogers case, our department was tired of doing these cases like this. So I couldn't get them fired up to really work it much more. So I had one detective, a couple of detectives that stayed on the case for a while. And then what happens? They go cold.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be an answer to that. Now, he didn't have any, he had 2 children that hated him. So there wasn't anybody to keep sounding the horn, to keep screaming. The greasy wheel gets the oil, as they say, right? And that's what you got to do. And so if there's nobody pitching it or anything like that, it'll go cold because agencies just let it go. And then they're hoping for something in the future where somebody comes forward, some guy comes to the police station, knocks on the door and says, "Hey, I know who did this," or somebody in a cold case, if there's DNA or something, they can run some old DNA and get it that way. So I always felt bad about that case. Now, his children, he had a daughter and a son, they could give a hoot.
Wow.
So he must have been a kind of nasty guy. I don't know. He had made a lot of enemies, we found out. And the amount of paperwork he had in his house of all the wheeling and dealing he'd done, no telling. So anyway, everybody's got those kinds of cases, I would think, that we weren't able to make headway on it. Nobody cared.
Exactly. Well, I really appreciate you going through that story. I think the Rogers family is absolutely fascinating, and I do want to talk about Nancy Guthrie because, you've seen what goes on behind the case. I mean, you've been in, professional career PD scenario with all different types of personalities. What is your, and you don't have to, you can sugarcoat or however, but I mean, what do you think about nanos if you'd rather not,
I almost never, ever would speak against another law enforcement officer. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, this guy's a clown.
Okay.
And that's just the way it is. People that I think would probably never say anything negative about another law enforcement officer are doing the same thing, saying, I can't say well all I think and what all I believe. I just, he has failed from the get-go. And, I'm doing a bunch of shorts now on the failures from the get-go, right? From the scene and right on down. I think I've gone through 10 things now so far. I don't know how far I'm going to go with that. But anyway, he failed right from the first night when he got out there flapping his jaws and just giving not good information, not good insight, anything. And then I don't know, even up to right here lately where I guess I just heard he changed investigator, changed sergeants, changed the lead, that kind of stuff,
Well, so the first night when he's held 2 official press conferences, the
Yeah.
first night. So in your, career, when homicides just occur, a lot is developing, a lot of information changes. So is that when you need to not have the press conference, or what kind of press conference do you have when the information is fluid?
His problem is he's political. Whenever that kind of stuff would happen, our PIO would come out on all the homicides, not all, but if I wanted him to, he would come out. We had a really good one, and he would come out and speak, or I might have to speak to the media. But after in the beginning, after I came back, did the Rogers case, after I came back from Quantico, and I got used to doing these press conferences and stuff, but I knew to keep my mouth shut. I knew what to say, what not to say, and try to give them something, because they, if you don't give them something, they're going to dig around and find something, and it's going to be inaccurate. So I'd rather give them some accurate stuff that's not going to affect our case, so, but, I think Nanos just talks too much. Look at all these interviews he gave this week. He's just talking too much.
This is the one that I just had up right here, and this is from today. And the headline, CBS News, the sheriff in the Nancy Guthrie case said he didn't have a note indicating she was dead, but he did. And so basically, I'll read the first 2 paragraphs.
Okay.
When investigators in the Arizona disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, the Mother of Today show co-host Savannah Guthrie released 2 ransom notes Friday. One of the messages directly contradicted what Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos told CBS News in an interview one day earlier. On Thursday, Nanos says, I have nothing to indicate she's dead. I don't have a body. I don't have a burial site. I don't have any note. But he did have a note. On Friday, he released the notes. So what is he?
Like I said, I can't say what I think he
I
is.
understand, but I mean, is it because he's a politician? He really doesn't have any experience. Is he
Well, he has to have had some
incompetent?
experience. He's incompetent, but he had to have had some experience, but once you become a politician and all, and I think it changes you, for one thing. And the sheriff's job is a political job, so they have to always be wary of that. But he's 10 times worse than any I've ever seen about all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I don't know. He doesn't know what he's doing. That's all I can say. And he needs to stop talking. He's got a good PIO there.
Yeah.
Public information officer. He does, who knows what to say and what not to say. And then you're always talking to the homicide guys, and they're telling you, okay, don't tell them this, don't tell them this. We don't want to release this. So he just likes to talk, I guess.
Do you think he doesn't want anyone to tell him because he's always right? He's the smartest man in the room, kind of a personality thing, not a professional, just a personality.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think that's it. And that's why he can't ever be wrong. And if anybody ever points out anything to him, they're gone.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I felt like he didn't have any more press conferences because the media is able to call him out on the carpet, and he is not used to that. Yeah.
Exactly. He doesn't want anybody shooting questions at him that he doesn't have some control over. He don't want to get bing from one side, bing from another side, and all that kind of stuff. And he's a little bit intimidating with these single reporters in there talking to him. You know, even the 17-year-old kid who interviewed him did a really good job. He was hesitant to ask certain questions. He said so later in interviews with Coffindoffer and somebody else, I guess, or Banfield. That's who it was. He was hesitant. He planned why he was going to. He wasn't going to ask certain questions. Why was he not going to ask certain questions? Because he's seen how he reacts with certain questions, and he doesn't really want to be questioned. Of course, I think a 17-year-old caught him off guard.
I agree. I agree. And Brian Enton has gotten one 10-minute interview with him, and he can't get another one. And he had interviewed a guy who had left and just bashed Nanos, and I'm sure that's just
that's
done.
it. Nanos ain't going to talk to him. He don't have to.
No.
So he's not going to talk to him again.
It's all about loyalty. So is there anything? Okay, you've mentioned that this one is a whodunit.
All right.
What is it about this case that's a whodunit? I mean, because just from your experience, I know what I could say, but I want to hear from you. What makes it a whodunit?
Because they haven't been able to figure anything out. I mean, we got that. I call it a composite. The picture on the front porch. That is all we have. Mm-hmm. You've got a composite of this guy, which is not a composite like we had in our case, but it's it is a composite of his body style, and things like that, and a little bit that you can see through the eye holes and all that. So, but that's it. We don't have another thing. We don't have a car. The only evidence we have is the blood on the front porch. Now, they may have evidence inside, which I think there probably is, evidence inside, maybe blood on just inside this front porch, but inside the front door. But we don't have anything and nowhere to go. That's a whodunit. That's a whodunit to me. When you see a guy like this, everybody had thought the day after that they released that, they thought, oh, we got this case closed. This is closed, man. The FBI is here, and the FBI is going to get him. Where is it? So it's a whodunit.
So we've gone back and forth between, is it ransom, kidnap for ransom? Is it a wrench attack? Is it family? Is it this? Is it that? I mean, it doesn't look like any one of those, except does it? Does this look like anything you've dealt with? What is it? What do you think it looks like?
Not really, not anything I've dealt with. I think probably, if you want my opinion, I think probably the first note is a real reach out, to try and get something. Second note, I don't know. Of course, Savannah and some of the FBI people believe that the two notes are real. Those are baffling, really. I mean, Chris McDonough broke them down real big last night, but still, in the end, it doesn't get us anywhere. It hadn't got us anywhere figuring out those notes. And in reality, who is it now? You got the people who are going to stretch everything in one direction. I tend not to do that. There's a lot of, on our case with Rogers women, we had 800 men called in, 800 plus men called in on saying it's him. Well, we only had a handful that were viable. And any of that handful, we could have ruined their lives if we'd have pointed out to them we got this suspect. We never told anybody we had a suspect until we were bringing him into the station, into the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office in handcuffs. So, but we had some good viable ones that we thought were good all along, and they were eliminated. And one of them, we were convinced. So I learned in that case there not to be so convinced always, because you just don't really know. And this is one of those cases I think you Now, I'm an Occam's razor guy, the
Yeah.
simplest answer is the best answer, and that's where I stay, and I haven't left that necessarily, okay? But to point out somebody and say they did it, this is it, I know that they are ones and all that, that's dangerous territory, ruining somebody's life. I watched
Well,
this. Go ahead.
no, no, no. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling up the unredacted notes.
Uh-huh.
And so here's unredacted note number 1 from February 4th, and then unredacted note number 2. And so I do think that they're from this because they have the Bitcoin account. And that's what I
Yeah,
pulled this up just to take a look. Um, and so I do believe that these are the same people.
yeah.
So maybe this is why they think that they are true, because they do have the
The
wallet.
same Bitcoin wallet. Yeah.
Yeah, which is,
Right.
again, I'm not familiar with any of that.
I'm not either. I'm not a Bitcoin guy.
No, I'm good. So, um,
Well, we didn't know that until yesterday or day before, did we?
correct. No, we didn't.
And I've seen these FBI profilers and all beat these letters to death, um, from saying that it's nothing, none of them, to it's the same person, to, maybe it's the first guy, maybe it's, and if you can't get all of them to agree,
That's the thing. No, none of them agree, and some of them have changed. I did had
right,
ChatGPT take a look at, like, Dr. Gary Burkado and Clemente and Ann
right.
Burgess, and, before and after, and, um, it's just based on information. So, do you think that there is more information in the back that they just haven't shared? I mean, do you think that they don't have a suspect? Or, I mean, you don't
I don't
know.
think they have a suspect.
You don't think they
No.
do?
No,
Okay,
I don't. But
really?
what do I know? I don't know anything. They could have somebody in handcuffs tomorrow, because if they're doing it right, that's the way it ought to be. But I don't think so. And I think that, like I said earlier, I think I said this at the all this hullabaloo last week and all, they're trying to shake the trees to try and get something to move, and because they don't have anything, if they had somebody, they wouldn't be doing all that. That's what I think. Other people think just the opposite. That's what's so fun about this. We can have different opinions,
I
but
think they're tickling the wire big time, and I think they should have done it a long time ago,
oh,
like,
they
you
should
take
have.
advantage.
They should have released these notes long time ago.
Mhm.
Long time ago. There was no reason to have kept them. What did we get? What'd you gain by keeping them?
There's nothing in here that's horrifying for the public to read. There
No.
isn't anything that's blowing anything out of the water, and the writing style, I mean, there's a big difference between note 1 and note 2, though.
Yeah. Now listen. I watched. You ever watched this? His name is James Fitzgerald or Fitz.
Yes.
Okay, and his wife. They're both linguist experts. Okay, they believe. I just watched them the other day. They believe that the notes 1 and 2 are written by the same person. That what we see is really different. They
Yes.
don't see. And his wife went into great lengths describing that why. And I could see her point, but I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready for
Yeah.
that. I'm more of like, they look like it's written by two different people. But I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a profiler. I'm not any of that stuff.
Correct. Correct.
So
But you get a gut feeling for this. You have to, you have to,
sure,
and it's a lot of this is common sense, like what you did with the
yes,
Rogers case. It's common sense and
right,
critical thinking. People
right.
need more critical thinking. We need to think outside of the box.
Outside the box. Yeah, I put out a video called that. Think outside the box. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I'm going to check that out big time, because that's what I've been trying to do. And it took me a long time to kind of come around to where I feel like now it's probably more in the inner circle, just because of statistics. I
yeah.
mean, have you leaned that way at all yourself, or?
On the statistics part,
Yeah.
yeah, I hear that. I go with that. I go with that. I mean, you can watch any of these crime shows like Dateline or any of those, and most of all of them, the husband or the wife did it.
Yep.
I mean, you if you were a betting person, you could win a lot of money always betting on that, right? But it's not always true. It's just like the Rogers case. That's what the people in Tampa area did. They were betting on it was family. You know why they were betting on that? Both the media and the people. They couldn't get off of the fact that it was family. And the media was on that too. And they were beating us up with its family. Why? Because they didn't want to admit that this evil predator was right in their backyard, ready to kill somebody else. How do we know we don't have that here?
Well, you know, it doesn't help that the sheriff is so back and forth. I mean, he you know, cleared the scene, then he closed the scene, and then now he cleared the family and shamed everyone, and now he's telling people the other day that nobody's clear. I mean,
yeah, that's crazy. I mean, if you clear them, you clear them. Okay? You shouldn't have cleared them, but now listen, I wouldn't be surprised, I'll put it that way, if it goes back to this inner circle.
yeah.
But there's always exceptions to all this. What about the 8%? You know, you got 92%. What about the 8%? That it can happen. And this is the oddest case, you know, we've seen in a long time. We won't see another case like this in America, like this, for a long, long time.
And it's just so I don't understand how, with all the cameras this day and age, and I was going to ask you, because there are so many different AI programs now you can dump all your video in. Don't they do, because he talks about the hundreds of thousands of cars and the millions of hours. Couldn't they dump it somewhere?
Well, they should be doing that. There are programs that can handle that. The contrary, I'm doing this video that I just completed. I think I'm going to put out tomorrow about Leeds. This the Leeds disaster. They got a disaster going on. They don't even know they got a disaster yet. But because there's no way they can follow up all these leads they got. Not with what I've added up to be about a 12-person task force between the FBI and the Sheriff's Department.
Well, like E-Sleuth is a program. I mean, they're out there, and E-Sleuth is actually a group of people. Ann Burgess is one of the co-owners, and you dump everything in, and it will actually pull, like, here's your next step, and it will tell you, okay, these are the things that are adding up. Go follow up with this. And
who dumps it in, though?
I don't know.
Yeah, there's got to be somebody dumping it in. That requires personnel to dump it in. You go from the lead that's called in, somebody writes and types it out. Now it's got to get dumped in. And then all this has got to be quantified together, and it's not done all at the same time. Now you might be able to do it because you got all these at the same time. But what you got to understand is this is a pride issue a lot of time with these agencies. They won't admit that they don't have what it takes to get it done. Even the FBI. They won't admit, and they got their system. The sheriff's office got their system. They have two competing systems that don't talk to each other. Where are those leads going? When a lead gets called into the sheriff's office, where does it go? Does it go to the sheriff's office database? When leads called in the FBI, where does it go?
They're siloed.
Database. Yeah, and they don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a real problem. It's a real issue that people don't think there are. I would be willing to bet. Now, I can't prove this. It'll get proven sometime in the future, whether what I'm fixing to say is true or not. Tons of leads have already slipped through the cracks because they weren't prepared for this. Who can prepare for this? That's the thing.
That's
why you have to have a system in place that's prepared for this. The systems they got is not prepared for a major case, individual case. It's not prepared for that. It's a general thing, and the FBI's thing is for international threats to the United States. There's nothing in there even about kidnapping or murder or anything like that, or homicide, because it's a very rare occurrence when the FBI works homicides. You know, when you get the federal building blowing up or something like that, yeah, you do. But typical homicides like the rest of us out here work in local agencies and all, they don't work those. So it's a whole different ballgame for them. Anyway, I don't want to keep babbling on.
No, I'm fascinated by this. I'm hoping that the FBI is taking this case over. I mean, is it possible?
It's possible. There was actually a technicality that Jennifer Coffindorfer likes to say a lot of times where they can take it over. But listen, they're not going to take it over. Cash
Okay.
Patel is not going to take this case now. It's been so messed up. He doesn't
Yeah.
want the responsibility of it. That's an ego thing too. He's going to say, "Oh, get that thing away from me. That guy messed it up. I don't want no part of it."
Yeah. It's
I think
tainted at
it'll
this
take a
point.
big man for him to say, "Hey, I'll take it. Let's do it." Okay. And
No.
let everybody know, listen, I'm taking a messed up case. I'll make the best out of it as I can. But this case is messed up. See, he probably wouldn't say that, but that's what I would say.
Yeah.
You know,
And the reward, 1.2 million, first question on that. Do you think that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 people involved? What's your guess? I think there's
at
3 or
least
4.
two and
Uh,
probably three. I
okay.
doubt if it's four, but it could be easily. It's
Okay.
not one.
No.
Early on, I heard one of the profilers, which I won't name, said that it's one guy. He stuck with that for a
Oh,
long
yes. I
time.
know who you're
And he's
talking
got him
about.
thrown over the shoulder, and that's how the
Firemen
blood came
carry.
out, all that kind of stuff. I'm sorry. I realize these guys are highly regarded, but that didn't make any sense at all to me. But going back to that right there, that incident at the front door. If there's anything missing that they haven't shown us, this is why I would think they wouldn't show it to us. Is that this what happened at the front door that could have been caught on that camera when she was down on the ground or whatever, and what they may not have wanted to release that so that the family didn't see it.
Well, and that's I've speculated that if they got that long of porch guy, they might have seen her go out, right?
Right.
And
Whenever he went back in, or when he got in. Now, if he tore the camera off and all that was already done, and anyway, that's the only way I see that there could be any more footage right there. And why wouldn't they release it? Only because they didn't want the family to see it. That.
that
Like, I didn't want the family to see even the photographs of the Rogers women
yeah.
on the dock and what they look like. Nobody wants to see those pictures.
So in the Idaho 4 cases, when the cops come up with their cameras, they have everything blacked out. I mean, and I wondered if maybe they could black out, but it is traumatic. That would be traumatic for any. I was traumatized by seeing porch guy walk up. I was like, oh my gosh, I
Can
couldn't.
you imagine that? Just your imagination of
No,
what she went through
no,
whenever,
no,
that guy's getting her, pulling her out of bed and whatever.
no,
Uh, it's
no.
horrible. This is a horrible thing. That's why it doesn't seem possible that the guy who, if Porch Guy, which I don't think Porch Guy wrote the first note, but let's say Porch Guy wrote the first note, which was pretty demanding, right? That's more like him. He wouldn't have wrote that second note for sure.
No.
I don't think he has any empathy. And the
Well,
second note seems to have that a little bit.
the first note has got a lot of description in it. It's like telling a tale.
Yeah.
And then the second one is all about feelings. And, we all know that.
I
But
don't think Porch Guy's got any feelings.
no, he does not. He's a paid. And so,
I wouldn't be surprised.
if note number 1 is written by one person,
Mhm.
I have to theorize that he was unavailable to write note number 2. And, if it's the family, you've got the feds in and out of that house that first week when they're all clustered around and the phones and everything. And he was the prime suspect at that time, for sure, per
Yeah.
Banfield.
But there's a lot of reasons why you have to eliminate them. They got it. They got their phones and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They can prove where they were, where they weren't, and they got uh, they got
So,
Nancy's phone from outside the house, right?
yeah, they got her phone.
Okay, so they can track her phone and all that, and they can track her watch, and they can track Tommaso's and Annie's and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of that is eliminatory.
Do you think that A&T could be involved in this, or like masterminding, or because and I'm not going to
Yes,
ask you.
it's possible. It's possible, but
Yeah.
again, I don't like to. They're
Yeah.
suffering a lot. If they obviously, the sheriff's department, obviously, and the FBI obviously had their sights on them or on him to do all that they did with their car, in their house, and everything else.
Yeah.
Why would you do all that unless you? Well, they were the last ones to see them, so that's obvious.
Sure.
So, you know, I think it was a little bit more than that because of the 92% rule, right?
Yeah.
But if they've eliminated them, they've eliminated them. How do we know who we can trust, though, in telling us that?
That's the thing. And, you know, and how I feel now is we can't be selective by what we want to believe from nanos. Either it's all garbage or none of it's garbage. And so we can't believe some of it when it just sounds like it's something we want to hear, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Now,
a tough situation.
it is. This is a very, very, very hard case. When it started out, all of us thought it wasn't going to be that hard.
Yeah.
And you know, because of the inner circle thing. Then you know, when the picture came out, we thought, oh, this is it. Well, here we are 6 months later. And all I can say is this case, if you wanted to give it one title,
Yeah.
chaos.
Yeah.
This case has been nothing but chaos from the crime scene till now, till this past week, with nanos and everybody running their mouths. Chaos.
Every direction, inside and out, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you can't get anywhere when your case is chaos. There's no telling what's happening within the task force itself. I don't know how they're assigning leads, how they're doing what you know is the actual workings of a task force. You know, who's making decisions on leads and where to go and what to do. I mean, you know, yeah, they say, oh, it's they got an AI thing with little AI doesn't spit out leads and some robot comes by and picks them up.
No, it's a
Humans
human.
that have to do this stuff. And even in the tips processing that the FBI has, if you really read through it, which I've researched it, or you read through it, it has to go through several humans before it gets out to be worked.
Yeah.
What does that save? Now, I agree. It should be saved. We should be doing all this stuff computerized, but computers don't always save time. You may think they do. In a lot of ways, they do. Okay. In a lot of ways, they do, for sure. All right. But when it still's got to go through a human, somebody's got to read it. Somebody's got to pass it on by their own thing. They got to pass it on to a supervisor to read it and to look at it, and then assign it. And then somebody's got to take the assignment and run with it. And then you take one lead and you go run out there. And let's say you got to go 20 miles away to interview a witness or somebody who has a lead that says, I know who did it, you know? And we had leads like that in the Rogers case. People says, I know who did it.
Yeah.
Know? So you got to go out there and you got to really interview those people. It takes hours and hours and hours to run that one lead down. And then if they give you a name of the person, then you got to go and you got to, run that lead down, that part of it down. So one lead can take you a whole day to work.
We have a question. Can a person not be considered a suspect and not be cleared at the same time? So, I mean,
can a person not be considered a suspect and not be cleared? Yeah. You're not nobody. My mantra was nobody's ever cleared.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would tell these reporters, I said, everybody's a suspect,
Yeah.
Well, everybody's not a suspect, but they got the point that we haven't ruled anybody out until we figure it out. Everybody's a suspect. Well, obviously not. Everybody's not a suspect.
So what do you think is going to solve this? Do they need to start over? Is this what you would do? Yeah.
They did. I did a video on that too, where it said they need to start over. They need to start over. Start from the beginning and review everything. I don't know what they've done, but let's say they've had a bunch of leads come in that maybe some of them were viable, weren't. They need to review them. They need to review statements. When you do a cold case, what do? The guys come in, they break out the books and they start reading through it. And what happens? They go, oh, look at that. We didn't see that.
Yeah.
Just like that brochure we found in our review. Oh, look at that. What is that? They never processed it. They never did anything with it. Was it processed? The handwriting wasn't analyzed or anything else. And that was the one piece of paper that solved the case.
Yep. And getting some people that maybe aren't even in homicide like you did, you know, people
Yeah.
that are
And they were
fresh.
that piece of evidence was sitting in evidence locker for a year. The original investigators, I know how this chaos goes on. The original investigators did not look at that brochure.
Wow. And that's, yeah.
And you can look back on it now and you say, how is that possible? Well, I know when you got a big case like that going, you got all these leads coming in and all this stuff's going on, and the lead detective, he's getting hammered here. He isn't really going and running out on the leads himself. There's other detectives doing all this, and he's trying to keep track of all that verbally and everything else.
Yeah.
And they don't look at the evidence very often. They don't look at the evidence. It's not like re-examined. Some technician brings it in, logs it in, and you know, if they saw it in the beginning, okay, fine. But this stuff was like in a suitcase, and thank goodness we didn't give them back this stuff.
Yeah. No,
Thank
I agree.
goodness. You know, yeah, that boat you saw there earlier that you had a picture of. That boat was we found the boat he had. He had already sold it. And sold it to another man in Tampa. We found that man that he had sold it to, and we bought it from him for $5,000 is all it was. You know,
Wow.
we bought it from him. We had it then processed and all this kind of stuff, and we didn't find anything as far as evidence goes, except exactly what the Madeira Beach woman identified that was in the engine cover. When he had an engine problem, he lifted up the engine cover in exactly the colors of the air intake thing and all this kind of stuff. She described it perfectly. She described that boat there, and we actually had a composite of the boat. One of our detectives, a female detective, it was an artist. She drew from that Madeira Beach lady's description of the boat a composite that looks just like his boat.
Wow.
So when we bought that boat, and it was sitting there, and we're waiting for trial and all this kind of stuff, and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement had it in their storage place over in Tampa. So they called me up and they said, "Hey, we need to get this boat out of here. You know, can't we get rid of this boat? It's taking up all this storage space in our garage, whatever." And I said, "No, So then they called and confirmed with the state attorney's office. I called the state. We had a little meeting. I said, "No way. Do not sell that boat. Do not get rid of that boat. We need that boat." Why? I'm telling you, we need that boat. We go to trial. Oba Chandler's on the stand. He's testifying for himself, right? He sits there and he says, this, and this happened. And my boat, started leaking fuel in the bottom of the boat and the bilge, and this is what it was, everything else. So while he's testifying that, one of the other attorneys prosecuting attorneys is on the phone to the Florida Department of Marine Patrol and said, go over and go in there and examine that boat and see if that's possible. That guy came back later to that day and he testified in rebuttal that was absolutely not possible, what Oba Chandler told on the stand.
Wow. And if you hadn't had the boat, you could not have done that.
Had the boat, we couldn't have done that. No.
That's
there's just things like that I don't know. Thank you, Lord. It turned out good.
I know.
Say.
Well, thank you so much. I'm serious, Boomer. I really appreciate you coming on, and I love hearing about all your stories and getting your, just behind the curtain look. And I do hope to have you back. And I'm hoping that I have you back when we have some updates for sure.
Some good news, right?
Yeah.
Something really happened. That would be fine.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, this was so fun. And everybody, please, I have it pinned. Please go to Boomer Investigates on YouTube and Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell for all of his goodies and join and all that good stuff. So, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate again, Boomer. I'm in awe. Thank you so
No,
much for your
no, no, no,
expertise.
no.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I was glad to have the opportunity.
Excellent. Well, I hope everybody has a great night. You too, Boomer. We will talk to you soon, and I hope everybody has a great night.
Amen. Y'all
Thanks,
take care.
everyone. All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye-bye.